So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on P-EBT. My name is Stephanie St. Hillian, and I am the SNAP and WIC Outreach intern here at Hunger Solutions. I will be acting as the facilitator for today's event. Today's webinar will be presented by our Child Nutrition Program Specialists, Krista Hestefer and Jessica Pino-Goodspeed. Just a few housekeeping notes. All attendees will remain muted throughout the duration of the webinar. We will leave time at the end to answer a few questions, so please feel free to use the questions chat on your panel. If we do not answer your question during this time, we will follow up with you after the session via email. All attendees will also receive a recording of this session along with the PowerPoint. And now I will like to use this opportunity to pass the floor on to Krista.
It looks like Krista is having difficulties too, so I'm going to get kicked off. I know that the first couple slides we were planning on talking a little bit about Hunger Solutions New York. So some of you may be familiar with who we are. Our organization is a statewide anti-hunger organization. We work to increase access to and participation in the federal nutrition assistance programs. Our work very much aligns with what you all do in your communities to ensure that children are fed. We work on a variety of programs from SNAP to school meals, after school meals, and summer meals.
Hi, everyone. I apologize again for the technical difficulties and appreciate your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started. So as I said before we had our little technical difficulties there, I'm joined today by my colleague Jessica Pino-Goodspeed. Both of us serve as child nutrition program specialists at Hunger Solutions New York. Today, we're going to take a look at some of the latest figures showing how the crisis has affected food insecurity in our state and across the country, and then talk about a range of federal nutrition programs that schools can leverage to meet the increased need. We'll spend some time discussing Pandemic-EBT, a brand new program, and then we'll revisit ways to maximize existing child nutrition programs. And finally, we'll leave some time for questions. We are going to keep the lines muted, but we'll take questions through the chat box. So please feel free to send questions as you have them, and we will go through them. We'll go through them at the end of the webinar. If there's anything that we don't get to, we'll follow up with you offline. Before I go further, I should introduce our organization for those of you who may not be familiar with us. Hunger Solutions New York is a statewide nonprofit anti-hunger organization. We focus on the USDA's federal nutrition assistance programs, including SNAP, WIC, school meals, summer meals, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and now Pandemic-EBT. We raise awareness of these programs and work to maximize participation among all who are eligible. We do this work because many people are struggling with food insecurity in our state and nation. The figures on this slide are pre-COVID-19. They provide a snapshot of 3 different metrics for measuring hunger. On the left is USDA's household food security metric, and these are national figures that are included in this graph. In the middle, you'll see the Food Research and Action Center's findings on food hardship, with those numbers representing New York specifically. And on the right is data from Feeding America's Map the Meal Gap Food Insecurity Report. And again, those figures are for New York State. For all 3 measures, the blue bar represents all households, and the orange bar shows households with children. So you can see that across all of the different metrics and geographic areas here, there's a pretty consistent story that more than 1 in 10 households are coping with food insecurity or were coping with food insecurity even before the pandemic, and approximately 1 in 6 households with children were coping with food insecurity. And unfortunately, but perhaps unsurprisingly, food insecurity is rising amid COVID-19. The Feeding America figure for all households from the last slide, which showed a food insecurity rate of 11.1%, is projected to increase to at least 16%. This represents an increase of almost 1 million New Yorkers who will be newly food insecure. We expect that households with children will continue to be especially hard hit. This graph shows two figures based on the Census Pulse survey. The blue bar shows the predicted food insecurity rate for February 2020 before the pandemic would have come into play, while the orange bar shows actual reported food insecurity post-COVID-19. You can see that there's an extremely disconcerting increase across all households shown on the left side, and that food insecurity rate for households with children, which is shown on the right side, reaches nearly 30%. And while I don't imagine anyone in this audience needs to be convinced of the vital importance of food security, note that the consequences of food insecurity among children are well documented and include direct connections to learning and health outcomes that are integral to the success of our students and our schools. Experiencing food insecurity puts children at greater risk of mental health problems like anxiety and depression. It makes it harder for students to focus and engage in class. It increases tardiness and absences from school, and increases the chance of behavioral challenges, including children engaging in physical altercations. The good news is that the federal nutrition programs are proven effective in reducing food insecurity among children and improving their health and academic outcomes. But the challenge is that all of those programs are underutilized. And that's part of why we're here today. While the existence of food insecurity has always been unacceptable, given that we have programs and this is a solvable problem in our state and nation, the increased need amid COVID-19 really highlights the importance of maximizing those programs and making full use of additional flexibilities and resources granted during the pandemic. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jessica Pino-Goodspeed, who will speak about Pandemic-EBT, which is one of those really valuable new resources that are available to ensure kids have access to food during the public health crisis. There may be a brief pause as we transition from me to Jessica, so please bear with us if that's the case, and we'll hear from Jessica next.
Thanks so much, Krista. It sounds like I am coming through, so I will keep going. Please put something in the chat box if you are not hearing me. So I'm so happy today to talk to you all about Pandemic-EBT. Pandemic-EBT is a new crisis response nutrition program. So this was authorized by the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. In that act, there were multiple facets in order to address the issue of food insecurity and the rising food insecurity due to the coronavirus pandemic. So what overall, we're just going to give you kind of the highlights that this is, and a big reason of why we really wanted to talk to you folks about it is that it directly impacts the children that you serve and their families. And so many of you may be participating in the summer meals, still having a presence in your community. You can play a really great role in ensuring that families know about Pandemic-EBT, and we'll go over like why that will be important. So overall, the program provides $420 per student. Each child who is eligible to receive free and reduced price meals receives that $420 benefit. In New York State, this will reach 2.1 million New York students. So those are the students that you guys worked so diligently to feed, will be benefiting from this. So to make up for those meals that would have come from school. So for who is eligible? So I think this is an important piece, and this is one of the top questions that we have been receiving and fielding around Pandemic-EBT. So we're just going to outline it here. So all children who are eligible to receive free and reduced price meals through the National School Lunch Program are eligible for this. So if you think about it, NSLP, that National School Lunch Program, is the qualifier for families and for students. So each child who is eligible to receive that meal through NSLP gets this benefit. So we just outlined it here just to be super clear on who that is, right? So children who are attending public school, private schools, parochial schools, charter schools, it doesn't matter the type as long as they're operating NSLP. Children who receive school lunch through a UPK program, Universal Pre-K, so those 3- and 4-year-olds, as long as they are being served meals, specifically lunch through the NSLP program, they are also included. Young adults, so this is often adults with disabilities who are in school for a longer period of time, from 19 to 21, those are also eligible as long as they're getting that free meal through NSLP. Again, just driving this home, this also includes all students who attend a community eligibility school. So if your school operates CEP, community eligibility provision, and offers free lunch to all their children, everyone in your enrollment receives that P-EBT benefit. Same for Provision 2 schools. This is less popular in New York State, but Provision schools, 2 schools that offer both free breakfast and lunch are included in that. So the whole enrollment, again, in that type of school. Driving home again, the UPK question has come up a lot. So again, any UPK child who eats free lunch is eligible. So why might this be confusing for families? Why is this different from other programs? This crisis response program automatically went into place. So because eligibility for children for free and reduced meals was already established, families do not have to apply for Pandemic-EBT. There's no application process. You might have seen things in other states. That's not the reality in other states. So there might be some confusion out there around Pandemic-EBT. And the way New York wrote its plan was to expedite these meals, expedite this benefit to families to make sure that there were no barriers. And so part of that is no application. So families will automatically receive a notice and a P-EBT card in the mail. That's a large amount of the families who are receiving this benefit. Folks who are on SNAP, maybe also receiving public assistance or Medicaid, they receive that benefit on their card. So SNAP families will see an additional balance on their card, but Medicaid families will then use their Medicaid card to access that benefit. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. But for families who are asking questions, and that's really our goal here, is to help your families that you're serving in your community. So families who have not received a benefit by mid-August should call the P-EBT hotline. This hotline provides individualized assistance for each person who calls, so they are able to get that information for those folks. It's important to note here that not the local Department of Social Services has, this Department of Social Services local in your community does not have any role in the administration of P-EBT. This is just through the state wide and the statewide effort, and this hotline is in place to provide that direct contact. For SNAP participants, again, that's going to be added to their normal allotment for food through SNAP, so they can check their benefit amount. I should note that families who receive SNAP, the majority of those families have already received their benefits. We'll talk about who's still left, but another key message about P-EBT, and something that we heard early on, that we want to get ahead of and make sure that families understand that they can still access other programs and still use P-EBT. P-EBT does not take the place of summer meals. It does not take the place of the school meals, emergency school meals that they may have received through the pandemic that you all worked tirelessly to provide in your communities. Even if they benefited from that service from you all, they are still eligible for this P-EBT benefit. Same goes for all these other programs, CACFP, so whether it's through a child care program, WIC, SNAP, regardless of any other program, P-EBT is apart from that. Again, we're driving home here that P-EBT is not SNAP. We'll talk a little bit more why that's important, especially for certain families. But local DSS offices are not involved with P-EBT distribution. So we're really working on pushing out that hotline as a way to help families and get that individualized assistance. A big reason why we talk about SNAP is not P-EBT, is around immigration status. So as you may already know, school meals do not cause a public charge. So a child's immigration status will not remove access from school meals. So you know well that a child does not need a social security number to apply for free and reduced price meals. The same goes for P-EBT. Because that program is connected to the school meal programs, P-EBT also is not limited by immigration status. P-EBT also is not affected by whether the parent or the guardian has the immigration status. A big fear in the immigrant community is public charge and accepting benefits. There's fear that accepting benefits will hurt them when they're applying for immigration status. So it's really important that especially if you have a large immigrant community or undocumented community in your school, that public charge does not apply to P-EBT and that it's safe for them to use that. So all families who receive P-EBT benefits should use it. So this is particularly like when we talk about a CEP school, for example. So maybe we know that the economy has been hit hard and that families who may not have needed assistance before are really needing assistance. So we really want to encourage families to use P-EBT benefits. It helps them, it helps the local economy, and infuse some dollars that way. So benefits remain eligible on your card for 1 year from the date that it was issued. So families, whether they want to use it this summer or maybe in the winter months, that is totally possible because that benefit is on for 365 days. However, if a family, say for instance, is in a CEP school, does not normally qualify for free and reduced price meals, and does not want to use this benefit, we first like to go over what I just went through because sometimes there is stigma attached with these things. So we want people to use it if they need it, but if they are looking to donate that, they cannot give that card to another person. However, they can purchase food and donate that food. So donating to a local food pantry. I know a lot of your schools are operating backpack programs. Some are even having school-based pantries. So even if you wanted to communicate that at that level, that if, say, for instance, you're in a CEP school and want to say, if you want to donate this benefit to our backpack program, for example, and you can outline food that's needed for that, or you can work with a local pantry to help with that. So distribution of P-EBT benefits is very dependent on how a child is certified for free and reduced price meals. So children who are in SNAP households, they will get that on their current EBT card. They received 2 payment installments. I think it's about 95% of those families have already been given their benefits. So pretty much this first cohort is what we call that, it has been wrapped up. Second cohort is through Medicaid. So these are families who are certified for free and reduced price meals through direct certification because of their participation in Medicaid. And you all know that nuance that not every Medicaid family is certified that way, but just those through direct cert. So those families will get their benefits on their Medicaid card. What they're receiving in the mail is how to pin that card, because you need a pin in order to access that benefit at the grocery store, just like a debit card. So there's pinning information that's being sent to those families to help them understand how to use that benefit. The third cohort is everyone else. So all other folks who are certified for free and reduced price meals, whether that's traditionally through your county and claiming, in that way through applications, or perhaps it is through community eligibility, perhaps it is through provision 2, or all other folks who fall outside of that. So those families will be mailed an EBT card for each child, and that will be coming through the summer. So it's anticipated that that mailing should wrap up by the beginning of August. So that's why there's that nuance at the bottom. If you have not received anything by mid-August, to call. So there could be many reasons why a SNAP family could go into that third cohort. So that might come up. So what the message we really try to help with families to understand is, please be patient, please watch your mail, be sure not to mistake some of these cards for spam mail, that this is a legitimate benefit for you and your family. And if you don't receive anything by mid-August, here's a phone number to call. So we want to make it super simple for you to communicate this with your communities. We have developed a P-EBT Outreach Toolkit. So in that we have flyers for families in English and in Spanish. We are fingers crossed hoping to get some more languages there, but thought this would be a great start. So this gives the basics about P-EBT. This can be handed out at summer meal sites. It wouldn't be too late in any other communications into the fall. We want to make sure that families, even if they receive this in August, are still able to understand what this is and be able to utilize this benefit. We also offer some sample social media posts and images, so you can post on your social media, and we know that all know that images get more interaction there on social media. So provided that too, we've had great success. Many shares, more than like a lot of the work that we do has been around P-EBT. So in terms of our social media, has been doing really well with P-EBT. So that's a great addition for communications. Beyond that too, there's a sample letter to families. This certainly could be used in your superintendent's newsletter, in emails that are going out in communications to families. I know that at our school, that they've already sent some emails asking for surveys and input from parents. So lots of opportunities and some language there for you to easily pull. You can visit our website. This is where this P-EBT Outreach Toolkit lives. And if you have any questions or need any assistance, feel free to reach out to us too. So while we have you, we wanted to talk a little bit about the Nourishing Kids year-round, because we couldn't do the work that we do in terms of advocacy and working with schools to improve access to these programs without the tireless work that you all do. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the coming school year and how we all know there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot up in the air about programs. But what we do know is that the CDC has put out recommendations. And I think for me, the silver lining of COVID has been this highlight of school meals and how essential they are to protect students and to provide students with something that they really need. I thought it was really a bright light on the great work that you all do. So the CDC has said that meal service needs to protect students and staff. That I was happy to see that they are still acknowledging that access is super important to these meals and the work that you do is so important. But the nuance here is cafeterias, right? And the issue here, I should say. So how to make sure that kids have continued access to meals while also avoiding large groups of students and not having them eat in common areas. The good news is we've learned a lot, especially through our work to improve access to school breakfast. So what FRAC has put together, Food Research and Action Center, they put together a guide for innovative service delivery models as schools reopen. So learning our lessons from improved access to school breakfast, how can we take those lessons learned and maybe apply them to lunch? So what they've outlined in this guide is direct delivery to the classroom, also known as breakfast in the classroom, offers an important opportunity. And beyond that, I think many of you have probably heard me talk about this before, about meals in the classroom and how it's an opportunity to incorporate social and emotional learning, especially for younger students in the school day. So this may be a really important resource as many students are trying to get some extra support in coping with changes and disruptions due to COVID. Also, after an extended school closure and distance learning, these models can provide some structure and also some quality relationship building while safe social distancing, which can be really essential with what the school year might look like next year. Grab and go also can be another option, especially for those who might find it more difficult to deliver meals directly to school, to classrooms. So grab and go is definitely still a great option for that. Another piece that definitely ensures access and continues to improve access to schools is community eligibility. So this has been around for a long time. It's been around since 2012. Community eligibility provision is based on the percentage of kids who are directly certified for free school meals. That allows you to offer both breakfast and lunch for free to all your students. Why am I talking about it again if it's been around for so long? This year there are some new things. The USDA granted some waivers to provide schools some flexibility with applying for CEP in the coming school year. So those waivers included an extension for a deadline to apply. Application is now August 31st. Typically that's closed by June 30th. Also, CEP eligibility is based on enrollment in a different time period. Typically it's April 1st, but you can take your enrollment anytime from April 1st to June 30th and also using all your direct certification data for the school year. So super important here, it gives you a larger window to capture all of those kids who are in families who are facing some significant hardship. We know that SNAP cases, number of families who are now participating in SNAP is also going along with the trend of food insecurity and increasing. So those especially who may have been on the cusp or decided not to apply because of worries with financial viability with the program, it's definitely a great time to reconsider and look at those numbers again. Yes, so CEP can really support your family, your students, your families, your schools, and also really makes it easier to implement some of those innovative delivery service models, whether that's a direct to the classroom meal or a grab and go meal. So I just hit on this a little bit, but especially I think that the crisis has impacted school nutrition budgets differently for everyone, but many programs that were once very financially healthy are struggling with increased costs for meals to also make staffing work. So CEP can be a way to help recover budget deficits in school nutrition programs. We just talked about a little bit about how food insecurity, high unemployment, and the economic crisis is really having a significant impact on families, especially families with children. So look out for those higher direct certification rates. That means higher reimbursement for CEP. Even if you are participating in CEP, maybe at a lower percentage, this is definitely a time you can reapply and recertify your ISP at any time during your CEP cycle. So if you have a higher reimbursement, say now, that would definitely be a great time to revisit it. CEP again helps with those models getting directly to the classroom. That direct certification has changed through the years. So disability assistants who manages SNAP, they are working diligently to make sure that that list is most up to date. I know that it's updated at least monthly, which is definitely an improvement from years past where it was only quarterly. Just to drive it home one more time, but we all know that, well, research has come out that says that schools that are community eligible and not participating in that, those children are 2 times higher risk of food insecurity. So just another reason, even if you're adopting maybe at a lower percentage of what's ideal for you, it definitely has a profound impact on kids and their well-being, since we know what an impact food insecurity can have on children and their developing brains and bodies. So at this point, I'm going to kick it back over to Krista to talk a little bit about after-school meals and a little bit to think through for this coming school year.
Thank you, Jessica. So while we're on the topic of school meals, we didn't want to forget about after-school meals, or officially the Child and Adult Care Food Program's at-risk after-school snack and supper component. So CACFP provides reimbursement for healthy meals and snacks served after school, as the name implies, but also on weekends and during breaks throughout the regular school year. It is connected to after-school programming, so among other eligibility requirements, schools or programs do need to provide an enrichment activity, though this requirement was waived for the last few months of the last school year. And we're advocating for that waiver to be extended through next school year. If it is extended, schools could use CACFP to provide non-congregate grab-and-go supper meals, similar to what you all are doing with emergency meals. For the at-risk component of CACFP specifically, which reimburses program rate for all meals, the program needs to be located within the enrollment area of a school where 50% or more of the students qualify for free or reduced price school meals. And the at-risk reimbursement rates for last school year were $3.41 per supper and 94 cents per snack. Those rates are updated each July, so we expect to see new rates out soon, likely with a modest increase. As you may know, most schools that offer after-school nutrition in New York opt to serve snacks through the National School Lunch Program. So there's a great opportunity for many of those schools to switch to CACFP after-school meals to maximize the amount of food that they're able to provide for kids and to get that higher reimbursement rate. As of October 2018, out of every 100 kids who ate free or reduced price school lunch, fewer than 7 had access to a complete supper after school. As we think through ways to support children and families amid rising food insecurity, CACFP can be a really valuable addition to your food service. And there's a lot more I could say about after-school meals, but we're covering a lot in a little time today. So I would encourage you to visit afterschoolmealsny.org for additional information, including our after-school meals guide. You can, of course, also reach out to me directly and we can talk through the program and see if it might be a good fit for your schools. Of course, now and every summer, we face the reality that kids lose access to school meals and after-school meal programs, and that's where the Summer Food Service Program comes in. While we're awaiting a list of sponsors and sites for this summer, we can share that last year, 380 sponsors, including both schools and community organizations, served summer meals at almost 3,000 sites across the state, which is a really incredible effort. This year, of course, presents new challenges, including a significant reduction in in-person programming, summer school, and camps for kids, which were often great opportunities to reach kids with summer meals. But at the same time, we have new opportunities to use innovative non-congregate service models to potentially reach even more kids in a typical summer. We've seen many schools and community organizations stepping up to make good use of USDA's extended waivers for non-congregate meal service, parent pickup, providing multiple days worth of meals at one time, and other flexibilities. To give you some sense of the need for summer meals in New York, we can look to some figures from a more ordinary summer and just bear in mind that the need has only increased significantly since then. These graphics show findings from 2017, but our more recent analysis of 2019 data shows very similar trends. One being that summer meals reach fewer than 1 in 3 of the kids who eat free or reduced price school meals during the regular school year, and that outside of New York City, that ratio drops even further to fewer than 1 in 5. We also see a substantial gap in access to breakfast compared to lunch over summer, and we see that access to summer meals drops off in the month of August. That may be because a lot of traditional summer programs end at the end of July or early August, but we would love to see summer meals access and participation remain robust all the way through the school year, all the way to the school year through the summer. So how do we increase access to summer meals? First, we need to ensure adequate sites and sponsors. While the sponsor deadline has passed for this year, new sites can be approved throughout the summer. So please feel free to contact me if you have questions about that or would like assistance thinking through potential new site locations. And while we know many schools are serving as summer meal sponsors and sites this year, they also play an essential role in outreach to families, which is what I focus on here. We need to make sure that families know about the sites that are operating in order to use them. And I think outreach is going to be especially important this year since families might not realize that summer meals will be available despite so many other types of programming closing or going virtual. We encourage you to continue using all of your communication channels to communicate with families about summer meals. So similar to P-EBT, we have a range of outreach resources available on our website, summermealsny.org, including flyers in English and Spanish, graphics, social media posts, all those sorts of good things. All of those resources direct to mapping tools and hotlines where families can find sites near them. And as you conduct outreach for summer meals, I want to encourage an additional push in August. As I mentioned, we do find that access and participation drops in August, and it may very well be that families don't realize that some sites are serving into August. Both in your outreach efforts and in efforts to ensure there are adequate sponsors and sites serving your area, community coordination is absolutely key. We encourage you to connect with any and all partners that may be connected with families. These partners can help with outreach to families, and some may even be ideal site locations. Some especially successful partnerships we've seen are with libraries, faith-based communities, farmers markets, youth programs, including YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs, healthcare providers, city and county offices, and any type of human services coalitions or anti-hunger task forces that may be operating in your area. You can also start your own regional collaborative with as much or little formality as you're able. Even a Zoom meeting to strategize with the various sponsors and community partners in your area can be really valuable. We've seen great success in regions that have some type of summer meals collaborative or coalition. And finally, when we're thinking about bringing everyone to the table to increase access and strengthen summer meals programs, that also means the kids and families that we serve. Consider surveying families to learn how summer meals are working for them, the kids' menu preferences, and other feedback that can help strengthen the program and ensure it's meeting your community's needs. This year, we'll all need to be a little bit more creative with that piece, perhaps with quick online surveys or other ways to gather that information without relying on a traditional paper survey, but it's still so valuable to hear what kids and families have to say. In these last few minutes, I want to touch on SNAP and WIC, two programs that are available to families and that schools can help promote to encourage eligible families to apply. As Jessica mentioned, there is a direct connection between SNAP participation and schools' opportunities to tap into CEP and other nutrition programs. We've developed an outreach toolkit to help schools spread the word about SNAP, while also encouraging families who may be just over the income guidelines for SNAP, but still eligible for free or reduced price school meals, to fill out a school meals application. Again, we have a flyer, social media posts, and graphics, all of which can be easily lifted and used throughout all of your communication channels. We also want to make sure that families know about WIC. The WIC program provides many benefits to pregnant women, new and breastfeeding moms, and children under the age of 5. WIC provides healthy food, breastfeeding support, nutrition advice, and referrals to other services. Someone may be eligible for WIC if they are pregnant, a mom of a baby that is up to 6 months old, a mom of a breastfeeding baby up to 12 months old, or a child under the age of 5. Something that might not be well known is that dads, grandparents, foster parents, and caregivers can apply for WIC on behalf of children in their care. Many families are eligible for WIC but not participating, as with all of the federal nutrition programs that we're speaking about today. And that's why we wanted to make sure to include WIC in this webinar. I want to quickly show you the coverage rate for WIC in our state and how it's changed over the past several years. This is the WIC participation map for 2014. In counties that are shaded green, more than 50% of eligible households were participating in WIC. Yellow shows between 41 and 50% participating. Orange is 31 to 40, and red is the worst at less than 30% of eligible households participating. This is 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. So you can see that we've had a trend of decreasing participation among eligible households, and that there's a lot of work to do to ensure that more families are connected with WIC, especially knowing that the need has risen so much post-COVID-19. The good thing is that there's some really good news to share with families, and that is that eWIC is here and paper checks are a thing of the past. You can see a photo of the WIC card on this slide. You may have heard that in the past, WIC food benefits were received on a check and a family had to buy everything on their food list all at once. We're thrilled to say that that is not the case anymore. The eWIC card acts just like a debit card that's swiped at the register. Families can shop when it works best for them, either all at once or going back to the store when they need to until they use all their benefits by the end of their 30-day WIC cycle. And as with the other programs we've discussed today, schools can be trusted messengers to spread the word about WIC. Since many of our elementary schools have families with WIC-eligible children and women, we're asking that you consider sharing a little of what you learned today, both with colleagues and families, and refer them to us and these programs. Please connect with the resources on wichelpny.org that can easily help you in this work. We have a resource center with flyers and graphics available for your use. We've just finished our first round of a free bulk mailing of print materials that school districts and other partners ordered to distribute to families in the coming weeks. And we expect to do a second round later this summer. So you're invited to connect with us about this or complete the order form that we'll be linking when we send our follow-up email, and we'll try to link in the chat box as well. While I could say a whole lot more about all of these programs, I'm going to leave it there and encourage you to please visit our websites to learn more. We have them linked here, and we'll be sharing this slide deck with you so you can really easily access all of the links that we've shared throughout the webinar today. And of course, you can always connect with us directly. We've included our email addresses on this slide, and we've also included a link to sign up for our email updates. We send those when there are program or policy updates, grant opportunities, and other newsworthy items related to the federal nutrition programs. So I think now we're going to take a look at the chat box and see if there's any questions that have come in throughout the webinar. To add any questions in the chat box as you have them. All right, it doesn't look like anything has come in yet. We're going to give everybody just a couple of minutes to stick any questions in the chat box if you have them. And if there are no questions, that's totally fine too. We'll be sending our contact information so you can always reach out in the future.
Thank you so much, Krista and Jessica. And we would like to take this time. Also, feel free to, as Krista mentioned, to send questions even as we wrap up. But we would like to thank all attendees for joining us today, and SNA, of course, for hosting this event. Please feel free to sign up for email updates, as Krista mentioned, with this link under Get Updates regarding P-EBT and other programs. You can also sign up. You can also reach out to Krista or Jessica if you have any other further questions or concerns regarding P-EBT. And as a reminder, as again Krista mentioned, we will send the PowerPoint as well as a recording of this webinar. Thank you, everyone.
It does actually look like we have a question here. Somebody is wondering if it's encouraged to post I'm assuming about the programs on LinkedIn, and the answer is please shout this information from the rooftops in whatever ways you'd like. And so if you do have a LinkedIn profile, I know there's a little bit of a news feed that happens on LinkedIn, and sometimes we post on there as well. Please do feel free to use the social media messages for that. And then we've got somebody asking if we'll be able to access the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, you will. And we'll be sending that around so you can get into all of these links. You don't need to frantically try to write down our email addresses or anything like that. You'll have the PowerPoint. All right. And I think that might be it. But again, we are always an open door. You can always reach out to us with anything.
Great. So if we don't have any further questions, I will conclude this event. Again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Krista and Jessica, for presenting. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.